So this is the same transaction what we saw earlier. Within this, in the master data, we assign the formula assembly determination rules, the master data. And here what we're saying is for application M or B, sales or purchase, anything, you want to use this price BF plus application. And for this function, for this, which is the sales side formula function, you want to update a decision table, which is this. And this is how you updated the formula, which we saw earlier, that for certain condition type and certain sales area sold to, ship to, and material, for certain date, you want to use the formula key CM brand 1. Along with the primary settled prices, you would also like to use mark-to-market data as well, right? So you can define your mark-to-market condition type and assign a same formula, assign a different formula as well. You can do that. And in SAP, most commonly the contractual conditions, the settled ones, looks like this. And the mark to market generally has some indicator which says, okay, these are mark to market. For instance, here it is MFO1. And these two can be picked up directly into the report, into the MTM and the PNL report, where you can see, okay, what are the prices for CFO1 and what are the prices for MFO1, depending on the formula key. Okay, so this is the same thing what we saw earlier, the BR plus assignment of formula key, and you can do different assignments based on different condition types or different data. The important objects in BRF plus is one is the application, the high level application which is used. Then within application, there are functions, which we saw earlier. There are functions for formula, there are functions for terms, and the basis pricing. A function has a rule set within it. Rule set is nothing but a set of rules. And within the rules, you can say, how do you want to run it? For instance, you can have n number of different decision tables, right? So you can say, first, I want to refer to decision table A. So this kind of tables are decision tables where you are deciding what formula has to be used for a certain combination. And if there's nothing found on this decision table, then I want to move to decision table 2 or something like that. You can have different rules. So these are called rules. And the combination of all these rules is the rule set. Okay. And like I said, they are decision tables within the rule, and they are decision table entries. Okay, so if you see again, you maintain records in the decision table, which are decision table entries. The decision table which holds the records, and this decision table is used in a rule that, okay, I want to run this decision table. If this is not found, I want to run another decision table. So that's rule number 2. And the combination of all these rules is called the rule set, which is being used within the function. And these functions are some technical requirements within the application, which has to be run for CP evaluation. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, and this diagram depicts the same thing what we discussed now, how each of the different objects are behaving. And you can also see the log within the pricing UI. You remember we were discussing about the pricing views earlier, and within the pricing view of tree, which is more intuitive for the users to analyze the pricing. You can also analyze the CP pricing. You can also analyze how the BR plus function was working, and you can trace it completely. Like if you drop down this button, you will have different options, and you can see the CP formula assembly log. Within the log, you can see what are the different functions which are being determined, and what are the data which is coming from the document, and what is the formula which was determined, and what is the term detail determined. So you can have the complete log. You can also click on the formula determination, which gives us a log again, but it's more in terms of this UI where you can see, okay, this is a formula function purchasing formula. So this is the function which was being run for formula evaluation. And here you can see what was the input structure and what is the output structure and where did it finally find the formula. So it was in decision table 130 where it found the formula. Okay. So this is another way of looking at the BRF plus evaluation. So for configuration, again, the same business function needs to be activated for anything within CPE and commodity management. Then comes the formula assembly user BRF plus. So for BRF plus, we need to run the functions for formula, terms, and the basis, right? So this is the same stuff what we discussed earlier, that it is standard delivered BRF plus application for CP formula assembly, but you can definitely copy into a new application and create your own rules and functions within itself. So where do we define the BRF plus assignment? So if you go to this VCP underscore WB and go to this commodity, this is the spot where we assign the BRF plus application to pricing procedure. So for pricing procedures here, it can be ACM or oil and gas pricing procedure, anything. You assign which BRF plus application needs to be used. And within this application, you you select what are the functions that has to be used. And definitely we need all three, the formula function, the term function, and the basis function. We do not delete any one of these. We need all of three to run. And this is more of a project implementation slide where you can define you can define your own formula assembly for CPE. Change anything. This is the barrier where you can alter the way how it is behaving. So this will be a document which I'll be showing you how the prices got determined. And let me show you the customizing the workbench for CPE. So this is the same T code that we saw earlier. In this workbench, you can see there are different nodes, the customizing part, the quotation formula, and the master data. And let me first take you through the quotations and formulas. So here, there are different places where you can define your DCS, your mix, everything, which I won't be covering anyways. So for quotation rule, let me take any example of quotation. For example, this is the crude light, the WTI futures. Here, this is the place where you define the description of the quotation rule, which is the curve, WTI futures. And you can say whether this is based on DCS ID, quotation group, but we do not use quotation group anymore. But it's not removed yet, but we do not use it. It's only DCS or basis. If it is DCS based, then you define what is the DCS ID, the MIC ID, and the price type that you want to use for determining the prices. And if you remember in FDCS 17, you have the prices which are based on DCS ID and the price type and the MIC, right? So this determines what has to be used. Using maturity selection type, you define what is the maturity key date, and depending on this nearby maturity or the second maturity or manual maturity key date, you can say, okay, exactly what mat key date you want to use. And if I open up another screen for the prices, you can see all these work together to come up with the price. So CLME, CLCME, Globex, price type is 5. So you can see you have the price date, which comes from the period determination rule. Then you have the price type, DCS ID, make, and you also have the maturity key date, right? So there are different maturity key dates, and each different maturity key date have different prices. So all these factors, DCS, make, price date, and MAC key date determines, and the price date exactly determines what should be the quotation price. So this is what works together to determine that. Here you can see maturity selection type routine is always nearby maturity for now, but you can definitely create second nearby or third nearby as well. In case it was a second nearby, then it jumps to the next maturity key date. For instance, if it is we are in October, for October it goes to November and henceforth. Like I said, quotation forecast, we do not use curves anymore. You can do that curve reading as well, but we don't use the curve reading, but we use the nearby logic, this nearby logic, to read the prices from the future period. Okay. Within these rules, this is the place where we define the surcharge rule. So, for instance, if you see the surcharge rule, this is nothing but it says that add 1% on top of the quotation price. So whatever quotation I have, I want to use 1% on top of it. And using factors 1, factor 2, you can do the math here. You can also have different new surcharge rules where you want to add, this is for example, surcharge, add X dollars per gallon. So this is adding 1 USD per gallon on top of the quotation prices. And here you can say what kind of rule you want to use. I mean, what kind of maths you want to do. Do you want to use absolute, which is adding surcharge on top of quotation, or do you want to do a percent, which is doing a percentage off from the index prices? And there are different kind of routines which you already have. You can do percent, absolute, then first percent, then absolute, and many more. And you can create your project required routines as well to come up with different rules. And you can create your own surcharge rules here. So in the period determination rule, let me take an example of monthly average. This is the most common one. Here, if we start with this, the source routine, you can see we have the quotation from market data table, which works for our quotation prices. You can also have SAP currency exchange rates, which works for our FX conversion periods. So this period determination rule will not work for the FX conversion pricing windows. For FX conversions, you need to use 11 here. Okay. And for basis pricing, you need to use 10,000. Now it's 100,000. This routine. Here we define what is the reference date routine to be used. For example, if I want to refer to my goods movement date, or I want to use my certain event from the TSW, like crude oil washing, or there are many standard provided ones, and you can create your own routines as well. For example, the order change date, or the manual date, or item loading date. You can have pricing date, anything. So this is the date which we want to refer to for picking up the price. And using this date, I say, okay, I want to point to the first day of the month, right? Or I want to use the 5 days ahead. But in case of monthly average, this may not be required. You can use directly this, where you say, I want to use 8, which say that for this date, whenever this happened, I want to use the first day of the month till last day of the month to be used. And that comes up with the monthly average. You have different standard provided rules, how it works together. And in case of wraps, you can say days or working days. You can define, for example, working days. And I want to say two days ahead and 2 days later. So what it does is based on, let me remove this. So here it will refer to the BOL date, And then based on BOL date, it will go to 2 days before the BOL date and 2 days after the BOL date and the BOL date. That makes it a 5-day wrap, right? If you want to exclude the BOL date, then you can do this. I want to exclude the base date, so it will be a 5-day wrap excluding the BOL date. So it will be 2 days before the BOL date and 2 days after the BOL date. You can also define your missing entry routine and the close days routine. So for instance here, ignore and set billing block. But you can also say for missing entry routine, I want to use 11 or 13, which says, okay, I want to use the previous working day and set the billing block. And the other term rules, term key, which we already saw in the slide. But there's one important factor which I want to show you for term key and the formula rules. Yep, let's come to the term keys. So in case of term key, this is a very simple term key where you say that, okay, I want to use a term rate leading and my quotation rule is Brent and my term rule is monthly average. It says monthly average because most likely the period determination rule within this term rule is a monthly average period. There are certain important aspects here, which you see roundings of term. So here you can define how you want to round the values at each conversion places or at each, for example, you have the term price. Do you want to round it to 4 decimal place or 5 decimal place or X decimal place? You can define it. They are standard delivered these rules, but you can definitely create more rules, rounding rules. Okay, and conversion place. Conversion place is nothing but a different spot within the CP evaluation where the conversions might be happening. We'll see this in the customizing again, but this is a high level where you can see, okay, you can have conversions happening because of quantity split or the combination rule. You can have different places where you are having the conversions, and each conversion you would like to round the value to 6 decimal place here. Also, you can also define at each conversion places, how do you want CP to do the conversion, whether you want it to use the material master, whether you want it to use the QCI, or you want to use a manual factor. You can define the rules here. Like you can say, okay, first material master, then rate type M, or you can say, no, first do the rate type M and then the material master, or you want to use the QCIs, or you don't want to use the QCI, manual factors. Everything can be defined here at these conversion places. And this is a very important place which plays a major role on how your conversion and your prices or your rules may look like. We'll look at a similar example for this one, how it plays a factor. Okay, and similarly, you have a rounding and conversion rule at the formula level as well. Before getting into that, within the formula, you can define, if you want to define your commodity always as UJ6 or bushels or pounds for the formula. If you always want to determine the formula prices in certain currency, you can do that. But most likely we'll leave it blank. Then you can have, if you want your formula rate as a certain currency and also a certain you can do that as well. If you leave it blank, then it will determine the unit of measure from the line item of the order of the document. Otherwise, you can set up your own formula This formula evaluation routine is always 1 to make it work. This is the place where you define the combination routine, how you want your formula to work. If there are multiple terms, do you want to use the lowest of the term or the highest of the term or the average or the weighted average? In weighted average, the term prices along with the factors comes into play. And the factors can be seen here. For instance, you can say factor 1 and factor 2. So if you want the factors to be a part of the calculation, you can do the weighted average as well. Okay. Or if you do just the sum, then it will sum of the terms. We also have the rounding rules at formula level and also the conversion rules at the formula level. So these conversion rules, whether you apply the term or the formula, are same. You can apply the term relevant conversions at the term place and the formula relevant conversions at the formula rule. And what does that mean can be seen here. I'll first go with the conversions because we have been speaking about that. So these are the conversion rules where you say, okay, what are the different rules? How do you want it to behave, right? You want to use the material master or the QCI. Another important place is define conversion place, and these conversion places are the place where a CP conversion is happening. For example, here commodity UM to formula UM. It's a conversion, right? That's why it says a conversion. And if you see quantity split round term quantity, this conversion is nothing but a rounding. You are converting the value here to a certain rounded value. So there are two kinds of conversion category, conversions and roundings. And these are the spots where quantity UM or the currency data are being converted within the CPE calculations. Okay, so for instance, a term rate is being determined. And from the term rate, you want to convert to the formula rate using a certain conversion rule, conversion place. So first you can define how you want to convert quotation to term rate. And then you can also define how you want to convert the term into formula rate using this. Right? You can say, I want to use the QCI, or I want to use the manual factor when converting term to formula, or I want to use material master. You can do that. So these are the important ones: 31, 62, 11. These are important ones. Then, like I said, gross net rule, gross net conversion was enabled in 1809, if I'm not mistaken, and those conversion places have been available since then. Let us quickly get into this. This is another important routine spot. This is the spot which has all the defined CP routines. So if you see, the routines here are part of all the formula evaluations within term, quotations, period determination rule, everything. So this is one spot where you have all the different routines which are being used within CPE. And if you want to use a custom one, then definitely you can use your Barry implementation to come up with a Z enhancement. You can create your own Z routines on top of it. Like these are the Z enhancements, custom routines, which is not standard provided. Okay, and anything else? Yeah, blocking regions. So this is a place where you define the blocking region, and these are the ones which are being used: the missing prices or the provisional price, and the missing currency exchange rates. So the missing data can be because of missing price or missing exchange rates as well. So that's why we have different type of blocking regions. And if you do not want your document to be blocked, so let me first cover this. There are different blocking regions, which are the normal blocking regions, and you assign the blocking region to billing type. Assign people. Yeah, here we map what is the blocking region assigned to which blocking region of SAP SD or SAP MM. We map it here, and that's how the system determines, okay, these blocking regions need to be applied on the document. there's a spot where we can define whether you want to allow everything to go ahead or not. Let me see. Where is it? I think it was somewhere here. Yep, this one. So here you can say, okay, for this condition type, because this is mark-to-market condition type, I do not want any blocks. So you can define this as well. On the V side, IM side, you can say for certain condition types, even though there is a missing block or missing entry, provisional entry, I do not want to block the billing because of that, because this is internal MTM calculation condition type, right? So I would not want the invoice to be blocked because of this. So you can assign the no blocks here. And this is the spot where we assign the BRF plus application to a pricing procedure. So let's say for sales side, oops. A wildcard entry is for any other pricing procedures, not this. This will be the BRF plus application used. And if you see the application, oops, this has nothing. So let me see this. So these are the functions which are being, which will be working for this application. So this is a spot that we saw already in the slides. And the BRF Plus has certain data elements on its own. You can also assign other formula assembly field names which will be used in the BRF Plus. You can define the catalog here for the different fields. And if required, if for instance, if you have Z fields and you want to use in BRF Plus as well, you can do the field mapping here, saying, okay, the compy field is this, and the formula assembly field name will be this used in BRF Plus. You can do that as well for your any implementation requirements. Okay, so this shows you how you can set up your formula assembly and how you can maintain additional field catalogs and how you can map the field, how you can do the field mapping between the compy structures and your BRF Plus fields. Okay, so let me see this. Yeah. Let me take you quickly to a document. So here you can see there are three condition types, and this is definitely a market price to calculate the MTM. They are the commodity prices. Okay. Sorry, the contract prices, which will be used for your invoicing. So this is the primary price. If I open it up, you can see here the view changes to tree view, right? And here the formula key should have appeared, but since some of the elements within this formula has been changed, so the formula key gets deleted because a formula key had a certain quotation rule, certain period determination rule, and if anything was changed, then the identity is lost. Okay, so okay, let me start with the formula. Within the formula, you can see the status. Okay, what is the status? That it was evaluated successfully, but some of the data is in future, right? Because it must be a monthly average of some wraps, which must have been a future period during that date of determination. And it can tell you when it was getting determined. It was determined on 13th of April 2020. So this is an old data. And it is blocked because this is provisional pricing. So the billing will be blocked for final invoicing. You can do the provisional invoice, but not the final. You can see the combination rule is average of some term groups, but there's only one term, so there is no much role of this one here. If we come to the term rule, you can see the term level status as well. Some quotations are in future. And let's start with the quotation rule first. So the quotation rule used is CLWTI. And if you click on this button, you can see what are the details within the quotation rule. So it tells you what DCS is being used, what is the make, what is the maturity selection type, price type, right? And maturity selection routine is nearby maturity. So this is the same detail what we saw in the quotation rule, which comes up on the document. Since this is display mode, you do not see here, but if you want to see the details of what is being determined, let me click here to get back. And this should be populating. Yeah. So now you can see the date used for fetching the price is 26th of May. So this 26th of May is definitely a future period for 13th of, no, oh, I clicked this button so it changed. So it was a future period for the day when it was created, and hence it was showing as dates in the future. This is the price quotation found, and the maturity key date is this for, oops. Let me see that again. Okay, let me try again. So the maturity key date. Come on. Okay, and the maturity key date is 22nd of June for this quotation period. So all this gets determined because how the DCS has its trading period determined, and the nearby maturity brings in the next nearby price mat key date. And if we see the prices, let me see if I can have the price with this. Yep. So the price date, quotation date is 26th of May for the same data. Okay. So it brings in the substituted prices. So this is wrong. Is it the same system? Yep, it's the same system. CLCME, GLBX, price type is 05. Let me do this. 20. Oops, there are too many. I have to look into a lot of them. But anyways, FDC 17 is a spot where it fetches the price from, and how it gets to the quotation date is determined in the quotation periods and details. Here you can say that, okay, oh, that's what it's looking at the current date. Let me come back to this order again. 6448, page 03, 6448. Because I click that term value, it does formula redetermination, not repricing, but formula redetermination, and it evaluates it again, and it brought in the current date as today's date. Yeah, this is our feature. If this area is too small, you want to enlarge it, you can enlarge using this button. Okay, so the time period was 13/4/2020, and it's how is it determined is it looks at the current date, and this current date was 13/4/2020 on the day when this document was created. So it brought in the date, and then it says the calculated base date is 13/4, and then it's doing nothing. I mean, although the selection days is days, there is no days here. And in case of close days, it would have used previous workday or previous